Hey, everybody. Today, I want to tell you a story, kind of a success story. We're going to be sharing some details, of course, not the confidential details, because that's not something that I'm comfortable doing. But if you recall, over the last couple of months, I've been talking about one of my clients who sold their business. As a matter of fact, one of my other clients bought it. So it's an interesting world where I'm getting all sorts of phone calls from all sorts of people, people wanting to sell their companies. Of course, that's not even really what I do. What I do here is show people how to turn their businesses around, their cabinet shops around. But I'm also getting calls from buyers who are interested in buying woodworking shops of all sorts. And so that's interesting when I can put them together. But that's not what this kind of what the story is about. But what I want to do is I want to give you a sense of the before and the after on this particular woodworking shop. Now, again, just to bring you back, this is a family business. It's a dad and 3 kids. Now, I say kids, but these kids have their own kids. You know, it's hard to call people kids when they're 40 and 50 years old, but that gives you a sense of what this family business looks like. And they started it like so many of you have. The dad started it by putting business cards on houses under construction, basically knocking on doors, introducing himself to builders, proving himself again and again and again, cabinet install after kitchen after cabinet install after kitchen, again and again, proving that he could make high-end kitchens that people would be proud of. And so now he has a roster. When I say now, I mean now he doesn't, because now he's doing a lot of lawn chair work. Up until this point, you know, he built this business to now where high-end builders come to him really without talking to anybody else. They're just like, we want you to do the kitchen. Here are the plans. Let us know when you can do it. They have all the same challenges that the rest of us have right now, especially around labor. Oh my goodness. Labor has been such a huge issue. You know, there's some group coaching classes that we run here, and that is something we work on in every one of the group coaching classes, regardless of what we're talking about. Somebody always has a question or a comment, or is looking for insight on how to find people, how to motivate the people they've got. You know, how do you motivate a 20-year-old to keep showing up to work? And, you know, I shake my head. I don't know what kind of conversations they had at their kitchen table growing up, but it would never even occur to me to not show up to work. And I know that we're all dealing with that every day, you know, finding labor, finding enough labor, anyways, common theme. And it was one of their challenges as well. And you'll hear about that here. So what I want to do today is what I have in front of me is the original strategic plan that I built with this company. Just for the sake of it, this is not the name, obviously. I'm going to write this down. We're going to call it Ken's Cabinets, just so you can visualize Ken's Cabinets. And Ken is an older gentleman. He's in his plus 70s. And like I said, 3 kids who range in their 40s to their 50s. The business does around 4 million in sales. And really, they weren't that far off when I first started working with them. They, I think, were just around 3 million. So I only raised their overall sales by about $1 million. But profitability was more important. You know, it's being profitable on your business. It makes all the difference. You know, it's easy to increase sales, but of course, as we know, we still have to push all of that work through our shop, past our people, and have that installed and hanging on walls somewhere, depending on what we build and how we build it. So let me break this down into a couple of into a couple of goals that we had originally set when this plan was originally made. This looks like this was in October of 2019. So we're in 2022, and we just completed that transaction is just going through the legal final bits and bobs right now. But basically, it's as the time of you're listening to this is 2022. So they've gone through quite an impressive growth span. But let me tell you what they knew they needed to do and what we accomplished. How's that? So we'll do this as a bit of a laundry list. I'll talk a little bit about some of the challenges we encountered and some of the wins that they had. But let me show this, or let me tell this to you as an audio, so that while you're driving or while you're listening at work, maybe you're watching this as a YouTube video. Heaven forbid, don't do that. At least turn off the video and watch and listen to the audio. But I can walk you through what needed to happen in this business. For those of you who are watching it as a video, I've got two screens going. So if you see me looking far off into the distance, that's just my monitor and the fact that I need glasses. All right. So when we originally sat down and we met through the podcast, just like you guys are listening to me now, we had never met before, but they heard the podcast and thought, hey, we should call this guy. And so they did. And then we had a conversation, and then we ended up agreeing to find a way to work together. So we did. So here's what we did back in October of 2019, October 15th, actually. I took them through some exercises, some business coaching, some turnaround exercises. And this is what came from it. They realized that within 3 to 5 years, they needed to do this. They needed to add salespeople, which in some shops you would call designers. So they needed to add salespeople to their company, and they needed a better way to track their systems, their financial systems and their SOPs. So adding salespeople is something we ultimately did. Putting financials and SOPs in place is an ongoing process. That's a saw you're always sharpening, but I had specific tools that I wanted to show them there. Also inside the next 3 to 5 years, remember, this is 3 to 5 years from 2019. And at that point, they didn't know that they were going to sell in 2022. So keep that in mind, right? So they needed to have the installer question defined better. And that's interesting. That comes up a lot with cabinet shops, this whole question of installers. Some of you have your own installation crew, and some of you subcontract the installations to other people, and some have a mix. And some of you smile and nod when I say we do delivery only, Dom, and it's the best thing in the world. We just ship them and let somebody else install them. So there's a couple of different variations out there. But think long and hard about that. You know, the business model of installations is a different business than building the cabinetry. And so sometimes it's a real sticking point inside a company, and other times it just makes sense because then you can control the quality of the install, the customer service experience, et cetera. But it is an open question, and everybody deals with it a little bit differently. There's lots of flexibility there, but depending on which path you choose, there are different things we put in place inside the company to take care of that. Anyways, at the time, back in 2019, the question was, what are we going to do about this installer question? Really, the question around it was, is it working? Is it working the way we do it? And what do we need to change if we're going to change anything? And then they knew that they needed a full-time shop manager. That at that point was very undefined. A full-time shop manager, is that a foreman? Is it a general manager? What is it? And so those are the 3 to 5 year capabilities. Just so that I could summarize it again, here's what they knew they needed to do within the next 3 to 5 years. They had to add salespeople / designers. They had to have better ways to track their systems, financial systems, standard operating procedures, things like that. We had an installation question about how that fit inside the business of their cabinet shop. And then they needed a full-time shop manager. And I say that with air quotes. Okay, so that's the 3 to 5 year goal. Now, what do you do with the 3 to 5 year goal? Well, you've got to squeeze that a little bit. You've got to apply some discipline to it. You have to start to prioritize. And these are the questions that you hear me talk about on the show all the time. And of course, those of you who already work with me are laughing because you know the exercises that I take you through to get you there. It's intense. It's a lot of fun because I try to keep things fun and light, but it is supposed to be revealing and thought-provoking. My job, if I have any job, is to put a hot marble in your ear and let it roll around. And it should burn a little bit and it should sting a little bit. And at the end of it, you go, now I get it. And that's the relief. I want to put new thoughts or perspectives in your mind. And so that's what we do through these exercises. So then we get to the 1 year goals. So here's what they said they wanted to be at the end of a year. Again, remembering this started in October of 2019. They wanted their sales to get up to 3.9 million. So that's not too bad. They wanted their profitability. They said under profitability, they said, we need to know it monthly. I couldn't agree more. You do need to know your profitability monthly. And so there were some tools that I put in place, and I'm going to talk about these in a second. Profitability, needed to know it monthly. So let me move my camera here so I can read this other screen. Under the headings of people and organization, they knew that they needed an organizational chart, job descriptions, employee reviews. And really the other thing behind that is some culture. I'll get to that in a moment. They needed systems, different systems, which many of you call SOPs. SOP is an acronym. An acronym is when, the three-letter SOP stands for something else. So SOP in construction means standard operating procedures. You might call it systems, you might call it processes, you might call it flowcharts, whatever. They knew they needed systems for sales, for manufacturing, for installations, for reporting, and for time tracking. Now, believe it or not, when I first started working with these guys, they did not have any time tracking against jobs in place. And they'd still got themselves up into the $2-3 million range without time tracking. But it became an absolute game changer for them when we put it in place, especially when we started to focus on profitability, not just sales. And please, let me stop for a second. There is a difference between revenue, you might call it sales, and profitability. They're not the same thing. Please stop for a moment and consider that. There is a difference between revenue and profits. I'm actually in business to make a profit. I'd like you to say that out loud to yourself. I'm in business to make a profit too, but I want you to say that yourself. I am in business to make a profit, right? So revenue is quite often the big lie that we tell ourselves. We go home and we tell our wife, yeah, honey, we're doing 800,000 this year. I think we'll do $1 million next year. And your wife is very proud of you. Your mom hears that and she's like, oh, my son, I'm so proud of him. He built this company from nothing. He's doing $1 million a year. But in the background, that little voice in your head is saying, yeah, but we're not profitable. Take that little voice and amplify it. Profitability is why we're in business, not the sales number. And so I encourage you, and some of you listening are nodding your head or walking around shell-shocked right now. You got to track that profitability. I'll talk a little bit about that in a second. So let me just take us back to where we were. They knew that within a year, they needed systems for sales, for manufacturing, for installations, for reporting, and for time tracking. Then the other heading that they had is under the marketing scope. So under marketing, they wanted a showroom. They actually have a showroom. They wanted to update it. By the way, we never did get to updating the showroom because of the costs involved and the fact that people didn't really come to their shop. And for those of you listening, you might remember a little thing that happened globally that stopped people from visiting other people. So it sort of demotivated the need to put money into a showroom. Anyways, marketing, showroom, fix their website, like have a better, more engaging website that had the appropriate trust breadcrumbs out there for people to follow back. They wanted a better house listing and more on the social media side. So that sounds like a huge list. And as a matter of fact, it is a huge list. Any one of those things could be a game changer. But when we do business coaching, or when you take one of the courses, or when you're focused on the task at hand and you've got somebody reminding you or highlighting, imagine you're walking through a pitch black room, and that pitch black room is your business. And somebody holds up a flashlight and focuses on one thing and says, what do you think about that? It allows you to focus on that one item and decide to take one little action. That's all it is. Use the showroom as an example because it went nowhere. You're in a pitch black room. That pitch black room is your business. You don't know where you're going. You're fumbling around. You're feeling in the darkness. You're feeling a little frustrated. And then suddenly I come along and through one of the exercises, and really through accountability and reminders and tips and tricks and hacks and shortcuts, we flash the light on the showroom question. And you look at that and you go, hey, Rubino, yeah, that showroom's a problem. But when I look at all the other things in the company and what's going on globally, where people are no longer allowed to visit people, the showroom's actually not really a big deal. So Rubino, if you don't mind, let's turn that light off. Focus on something else. Boom. Now, we didn't change the world, but we did focus the owner. And so that's a pretty good thing to have. And so I'm telling you something that we didn't accomplish. We did, one of their longer term goals was to fix their showroom. Yeah, we didn't do that. We didn't do that because we didn't need to. It didn't add to the end result. But in many cases, you, and maybe if you've got business partners, you're focused on different things in the business. You focus on things that you both feel are important, but they might not all be number one on the agenda. And what's very important for partners is that they're all focused on the same things. And so when we have a list like this, and I'm going to read this through quickly so you get a sense of it. When we have a list like this, that everybody around the table has a part in building, we get a lot of agreement around the table. And then, of course, the next bit is, which one do we work on first? And everybody has that conversation about, we should work on this first and this second, and this thing is sixth. This comes in number seventh. And we all understand that. And it's so much easier to go, listen, I don't know the showroom was a thing, but it's not a thing right now. It's still a thing. It's just not a thing today. It's still a thing. It's just not a thing right now. And you might be having that same conversation at your shop. Maybe you've got a partner and your partner is saying, geez, we really need to upgrade the van. We really need to upgrade the trucks. But you, as the other partner, don't think that's the number one priority. You agree that trucks need to be upgraded, but you don't agree that that's the number one priority, where if we had $1, we'd spend it on a new van, new Sprinter or transit van, right? Whatever it is, doesn't matter. Are both partners aligned? Are all partners aligned, going in the same direction? If you think about this, think about a golf swing. I actually don't like golf. For me, it would be archery or a rifle shot or something like that. But let's think about a golf swing, because let's just think about a golf swing. When you're at the tee box, a slight difference in how you hold your club and how you strike the ball means a massive difference as to whether you're on the green, you're in a sand trap, or you're in the trees. But it all comes back to a slight little difference at the tee box. The alignment is making sure everything is squared up. And if you and your partner, and if you don't have a partner, it's the same as with your foreman and your bookkeeper and all the people, the key people on your team. Are you lined up so everybody's aiming for the green? Is everybody aiming for the same green? Is everybody understanding, look, we're not going to make the green, but we're going to make an approach shot that gets us ready for this dog leg, whatever it is, but we're all aiming at the same thing. Because if we're not, then I'm going to go to partners in a second. One partner's aiming at what you think is the bunker. One partner's aiming at what they think is the green, and the other partner's aiming at what looks to be the trees. You're all going down the fairway, but you're going in different directions. And there's a lot of wasted time and effort. The other problem is, once you get that far down the fairway, you're now in a disagreement. How did we get this far apart? We're all working so hard, but we're still not getting done what we need to get done. And we're getting further and further apart as time goes on. This is where the golf analogy comes in, right? All right, let me read this out again. Here's what they knew they needed to do in a year. Sales needed to hit around 3.9 million. Profitability, and that was only for 2020, right? So by October of 2020, we got well beyond that. And profitable. Profitability, need to know it monthly. People/organization, we need an org chart. We need job descriptions. We need employee reviews. Systems, they need systems for sales, for manufacturing, for installations, for reporting, for time tracking. And then under the heading of marketing, the showroom, website, House is a marketing website for contractors and trades. I'm sure you know it. And then social media. All right. So what did we do about that? Well, I'm not going to take you through every single thing we did, but I'm going to take you through the high points, right? So in the 1-year goals, when we talked about sales, how are we going to increase our sales and how are we going to increase the profitability on our sales? We needed an established sales process. Now, the other reason that that's important in the short term is because before we bring on salespeople or designers, which, if you'll recall, was one of the 3 to 5 year goals the company had. But before we start paying an off the street person, remember, this is all family at this point. Before we start paying a salesperson to come in and take over our sales, we need a sales process. We need a system for them to follow. There's a 7-step sales process, which works whether you're selling to homeowners or whether you're selling commercial accounts. And that's for other podcast episodes. But you need to have that 7-step sales process along with all of its scripts and its flowcharts in place and working and tested against how you do business, against the way you guys run things, about how you say what you say, so that it works for you. So they needed a sales process. They needed something else. And some of you are going to laugh. Some of you are going to roll your eyes. And some of you are going to say, geez, Dom, I've never heard you say that before. They needed some crazy little thing called an EOJ report. EOJ stands for end of, say it with me, folks, end of job report. Those of you who are listening with headphones, walking through your shop, one of your guys just looked over and is laughing at you. Why did you just yell job report out loud? That's what's going on. The end of job report. For those of you who like a little giggle, you'll remember that the Forbes article that I wrote about this is called the Leprechaun Report, because one of my clients 1,000 years ago called it the pot of gold, that report being the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. That end of job report, there's a lot of meat on that bone. Oh my God. You've got to get end of job reports in place so that we understand profitability. If you're profitable job by job, you'll be profitable at the end of the year. If I'm profitable job by job, I will be profitable at the end of the year. But if you only look back on your sales or on your jobs at the end of the year, you don't have time to correct. You don't have time to course correct. So we do those end of job reports at the end of the job, right? And you might do them once a month for all the jobs that completed in the month, et cetera. I don't care really about how frequent you do them. I just want you to do them. That's one of the keys to success for a company that's ready to grow, that's ready for more profitability, that's ready for the clarity that we need. The confidence that we need to just stand up, stretch your back and go, okay, I think things are running right. We just made 68% on that job. We just made 47% on that job. Then you know the number. You own the number. You will also know, we made 19% on that job. By the way, if you're making anything under 20%, you're not going to be able to handle the overheads, and you're just not going to be profitable. So we need to be aiming at a higher number for gross profit. So still under the sales and profitability banner, let me just go back to the top. We needed sales process. We needed end of job reports. We needed forecasting. Now, as Ken at Ken's Cabinets, I almost said his name there, but I didn't. His name's not Ken, and it's not Ken's Cabinets. As Ken at Ken's Cabinet said to me, Dom, how am I going to know? For our whole life, the phone rings, we get a quote. I don't know when a guy's going to start a house. I don't know when a guy's going to start an executive or a luxury home. I just get a phone call. How can we forecast? And so we forecast by looking at our history to tell us what our future is going to look like. If we typically have a very, very busy spring, March, April, May, and it's been that way for 9 years, we know that with good certainty, next March, April, and May, we're going to be busy again. If we know that August is slow because people are on vacation, we know that typically August is going to be slow, whatever the trends are in your business. You follow me? But we've got reports that we put in place to help us start to track that. Numbers don't lie. Numbers don't care. Numbers are cold. It's funny, though, that talking about numbers gets hot. But numbers themselves, they kind of don't care. They're just the number. And it's those facts that allow us to make good decisions. And then the other thing that we had to do to keep them profitable in their sales, and this was a very, very big one, this is actually a tough one to do, is we had to figure out the ideal client. Who is our perfect customer? Now, for those of you in startup phase, you're laughing, you're going, Dom, any customer I've got is my perfect customer. I'll take whatever gig I can get. But as soon as you start to get a little bit busy, you realize that customers who are a hassle, customers who are too far away, customers who want something you don't make are not the ideal customer. And so that's why we get sucked into vanities and small bathrooms when really we're set up to do high-end kitchens. Maybe we want to do closets. We want to focus more on closets or wine racks or Murphy beds. I don't know what you want to focus on. But when somebody pulls you away from that work, your crew isn't set up to build it. The tooling is, just the very rolling racks they're using aren't made to make it so that is easily built. You're not used to estimating it and engineering it. You're not even used to billing it, buying those parts. You got to flip through a catalog that you've not used to seeing. It all adds to the complexity. So understanding our ideal client makes your company run a lot smoother, and profitability is found in those little things. For those of you who take the Find and Fix Your 8 Profit Leaks course, you are going to recognize that conversation times 1,000, because we jump into that topic and we roll around in it, and then we pop out with all sorts of ideas. That's all in Find and Fix Your 8 Profit Leaks. I know some of you are laughing because you might have heard me talk about it this week in the class. All right, next we jump down to profitability. Need to know it monthly. Again, here comes EOJ reports. Need to know our end of job report. And again, people who are taking the Find and Fix Your 8 Profit Leaks course will recognize there's also the end of job summary, which allows you to see some super interesting things. Just a quick side story, and I know I've talked about it here on the show before, a different cabinet shop who we broke their cabinet jobs down by zone. So one of the things you can do when you do the end of job summary is you add these columns to your sheet, and you can see, who did we build the cabinets for? What did it cost? What was the retail cost? What did the customer pay? What did it cost us? What's our profit margin in dollars? What's our profit margin in percentage? But then we can add columns and say, what was the zone? What was our heat map? Those, you guys might recognize me saying heat map, because we separated their region where they do their business, take their office and plop it in the middle of the map. Zone 1 is within a half an hour drive of their shop. Zone 2 is, let's say, an hour drive of the shop. Zone 3 is further, and Zone 4 is further than that. Well, in Zone 1, they had no problem making a 36% profit margin. all day long, 36% net at the end of the day, 36% in the front pocket of the jeans of the owner. That's good money. As soon as they went to zone 2, it dropped to 24%. That's a 10% haircut right there. So on a $40,000 job, 10% of that profit was lost. 10% of the possible profit was lost just by changing zones. It's an incredibly important way to make sure that you're not bringing money in through the front and death by 1,000 cuts out the back. Have to find out our profitability. These are the systems that I talk about on the show. So stay tuned, folks. There's more. All right. End of job reports. Also for profitability, we needed a consistent estimating system. Now that ties very nicely to the fact that they wanted to bring on salespeople in the future, but needed a better sales process now. So we have to have a consistent way to estimate in a way that does something called defending our margins. So we have to estimate properly. We have to estimate consistently so that first we know what we're building. Engineering knows what they're, pushing the plans to the CNC for, all of that stuff, but we have to have good numbers there. When you have mistakes in estimating, that burp, that echo goes throughout the whole company. A bad job today that we, a job that we don't estimate properly now, we feel that burp, that indigestion all the way through the process. You start to hate your life. You start to look at that poor little end cap that the toes and the kicks are just going through the edge bander and you hate it. You look at the piece of wood and you hate the piece of wood. How does that make any sense at all? But you're losing money on the job and it came back from maybe you made a mistake in estimating and suddenly you're hating a piece of wood that's getting edge banded. How does that happen? It's weird, but it happens. All right. So profitability, profit leaks. Then the other thing for profitability is the huddle. Now the huddle comes back to communication. And there's a whole system for that. And those of you who hate meetings, line up behind me. I get it. I hate meetings too. But what I hate are meetings that waste time. I hate meetings that waste time because I hate wasting time. So communication helps me save time. It helps me have a stronger team, a smarter team, a team that knows what they're doing. If you're running the huddle or that operational meeting, right, there's a whole bunch of meat on that bone. I'm not going to get into today because we talk about it in a lot of other places. And then the dashboard. So the dashboard, I'd like you to think about a single report. And again, we've talked about this on the show many times, and we're going to continue to talk about it on the show many times because it is one of the things that when I die, I want you to put on my gravestone. This guy showed me how to do a dashboard. That would be weird. I think you'd have to run that past my wife first, but it's that important. We just need those numbers. And I'm talking about the operational figures of your business. How many leads did we get? How many people contacted us interested in building cabinets? How many of those became jobs? What's the dollar value of those jobs? How many of those jobs are going through the shop? When they're in the shop, you've got your own manufacturing metrics that we're going to track along with some other things. And then we've got some profitability metrics. Well, that dashboard is the answer to the question that your wife just asked you today, honey, when can we go on vacation? And you think, well, we can never go on vacation. I can't step away from the shop. You wouldn't understand what happened. It would all fall to pieces. It would be a lot easier, my friend, if you had a dashboard you could log into on a shared drive. A shared drive is like Google Drive, OneDrive, Dropbox, things like that, where you could log in remotely and have a set of numbers that tells you what's going on in the company. And based on those numbers, you would know what's going on in the company. You could call your designer, or you could call your engineer, or you could call your shop foreman, or you could call your installer and say, hey, I noticed this number is a little bit wonky. Can we talk about it? Boom. You're done managing your business in an hour and you can get back to watching your kids play on the beach or ski down the hill, whatever you're doing, right? Anyways, dashboard's important. How are we doing, folks? I'm checking in with you. This is a lot. I want to also point out, we didn't do all this in a day. We didn't do all of this in a day. Now, these guys happen to be what I call a one-on-one coaching client. Those spots are gone. The people who take my courses are the ones who usually get a first shot at being in the one-on-one coaching. And the one-on-one coaching, we meet every 2 weeks for an hour because kind of that's all the DOM you can take. But it's because it's a very directed and focused meeting where we have very specific actions at the end of every coaching meeting that people are responsible to go do. And so this isn't something that everybody can necessarily do with DOM yet, but you got to start somewhere, and getting your head wrapped around these ideas is where it starts. Just being reminded, listening to the show when it comes out. And by the way, I appreciate you listening to the show. Thank you. because I don't know anybody else that's speaking to the cabinetry, the architectural millwork, the furniture making community about the business of the business like I am. It's just what I'm wired to do. I'm the luckiest guy in the world because I get to do what I love, which is this, which right now is talking to my microphone and a monitor. But you know what I mean? I get to talk to you guys and show you the success secrets, what other guys are doing in their other shops. Dial today. What is today is April. It's a Wednesday in April right now. Go back 10 years from now. That would be, given today's date, 2012. In 2012, there might have been a few podcasts, but I'll tell you what did your life look like in the year 2012? What did your life look like in the year 2000? If you were a shop, you would just never have the chance to hear about this $4 million family business being broken down piece by strategic piece by actionable piece to tell you, hey, this is what those guys did. What can I take away? And so if today all you do is one little thing from what we talked about, call it a win, my friend. You're living in the future. Doc is going to show up in the DeLorean any second from now and rummage through your gas can to get fuel for his DeLorean, right? Like, we're in the future. This is the best time ever to be in business because you're not alone anymore. You don't have to be alone. There's a community of other woodworkers out there that isn't afraid to share the secrets to talk about what they're doing. Now, the reason I always keep it confidential is because it's none of your business. Other people's business is none of your business, but the story is where the power comes in, right? It's not called Ken's Cabinets, but Ken's story is what I need to share because you need to hear it. Because if he did it, and if we did it, you can do it too. Whether or not you ever talk to me live one-on-one, whether you take any of my courses, whether we ever get a chance to work together, whether I ever speak at your conference, you can still do this stuff. So right now, you are living in the greatest time ever to be in business. The world is in front of you and it's nothing but opportunity. All right, moving on. People in organization, they wanted to, and this is within a year, remember, org chart, job descriptions, employee reviews. So guess what we put in place? We edited the systems and templates that they had in place already. We put scripts in place. I showed them how to build something called an organizational chart and an organizational chart forecast. That's pretty advanced. We don't talk about that in the Find and Fix Your 8 Profit Leaks course. We don't talk about that in the 30-day construction business course, but we do talk about it in the one-on-one, some of the advanced stuff. What's your organizational chart? And what's your organizational chart forecast? What I do there is I show you how to take your company and turn it into a board game like Monopoly. Imagine that your company was laid out in front of you like a Monopoly game. I want to show you how to move through the pieces as the dice rolls a little bit differently. And that's your organizational chart and your organizational chart forecast. Boring name, amazing results. Job descriptions and employee reviews, we put those in place. That worked really well. So they needed to build their own. But what they had to do is bring Ken's Cabinets culture to life. What are the vision and the values of this company? Let me tell you, let me just do this really quick. What are the values of this company? This is what they stand for. So if you ever met Ken and his kids who are also running the business, this is their core values. Listen to this only to understand who they are and to see if it aligns with who you feel you are. Not all of it's going to align. That's okay. But this is what you would see. This is what you would feel if you shook this man's hand. This is what he stands for. Legacy, committed, loyal, honesty, efficiency, respectful work ethic, reliable, forward-thinking, and positive contribution. What that means, and you don't have to agree with those at all. Those are him and his family's values. That's how they see the world. Quite often people have other values that we work on. A lot of people are strong in their faith, whatever their faith might be, and that drives them, servant leadership and things like that. And that, those are your values and your company has to reflect that. But most importantly, your people have to understand your values. Otherwise, there's going to be friction. There's going to be heat. And it's not going to be enjoyable. And this business needs to be enjoyable for you because you're the owner. So when we talk about people and organization, the things we had to work on in the company is making sure that we had the right people. And you've probably heard this if you've read Good to Great, the right people on the bus in the right seats going in the right direction. So we worked on that for sure. Let me move down to the other thing that we had to accomplish. Now, remember, this was in 2019, looking at what our 1-year goal was, and we sold this company in 2022. So I would call it, they've done a lot of great things. So they needed systems for sales, manufacturing, install, reporting, and time tracking. So we built flowcharts. I'm so excited. I don't know what to say. It's a flowchart. Flowcharts sound boring, but man, I'll tell you what, once you put your thoughts on paper, you own them. You can move them around. And so we built flowcharts. We built sales process flowcharts. We built manufacturing operations flowcharts. We built business operations flowcharts. We started using the Huddle and we started using the dashboard. You've heard that come up again a couple of times. And then we talked about marketing. And there's really two kinds of marketing that you need to understand when you are in business. I use the analogy of you're either a spider or you're a wolf. Both of those are very effective types of hunters, right? A spider spins a web and waits for something to fall into the web, and then they do the rest, right? A wolf goes out and runs and runs and runs and focuses on prey, focuses on that account that they want to get, and then they go work at it until they get that account. So we've got a spider or a wolf, both very effective hunters. If you want more information on that, if you want to break apart your marketing on that, go way back to episode 56 and episode 58 here on the Cabinet Maker Profit System podcast, because I talk about the spider and wolf approach to marketing and the different kinds of marketing you need. A spider relies on their website, relies on social media and SEO, and having great signage and doing events that you invite people to, right? That's a spider. You can see that you're building the net and you invite people in, and then from that, you bring them on as a client. A wolf knocks on doors. They might do some marketing. They might have a trade show where they go out and they're attracting certain people. They might speak at events. They're doing wolf type activities. So thinking about that allows you to understand and prioritize where you're going to spend your money and where you're going to invest your time. All right. You can never get time back. You can get money back. I'll show you how to do that all day long. But your time cannot be wasted. Time cannot be wasted. It is gone. If this podcast episode is not valuable, delete it. Delete my podcast if you're not finding it valuable, because your time is the most valuable thing you have. You cannot waste it. Every single second is precious. And you've heard me talk before about the revenue responsibility per hour that we have as owners. Time cannot come back. I'll make you more money, but I can't make you more time. I can make you more money all day long. I cannot give you more time. So keep that in mind. So understanding your use of time is very important. Go listen to episode 56 and 58. You probably already heard them. They're old episodes. Back then I had dark hair, one eyebrow. These are the old days. I'm joking. I still have one eyebrow. So listen, I think that's a good place for us to stop this episode. That was the 1-year plan that we originally set out. Obviously, we hit a lot of those things. Some of the more significant changes that we brought in place in that company was doing time tracking. And they used the time tracking system through QuickBooks. T-Sheets was the one they put in place. Game changer. A game changer, because we knew then if you're doing the Rubino kitchen, you knew which parts of the kitchen was being worked on. And then you could also see which parts of the kitchen we overestimated or underestimated, because we had time tracking against that. It also, as kind of a side benefit, it introduces a level of discipline to your team, right? They changed over a couple of people. They had some bad apples in the crowd. And so when we started to understand what our values were, and I just mentioned them, it becomes really obvious when somebody's not part of those values. And so they actually took somebody who was a painter, and she is now their foreman. She has the right attitude. She's got the right stuff. She's not a senior cabinet maker at all. She started in the painting booth, and now she's their foreman. She's great. She actually was in the, if you guys know the course that we run with Rick Patak, Foreman 101, Foreman/Supervisor 101 training. She was in there, and you may have met her before, but we won't share the name, from Ken's Cabinets. But it's amazing when you look for people that align with your values, how those values tell you who's going to be long-term in your company. I use the example of, let's say one of your values was faith, just as an example, because this one is pretty easy for all of us to understand. If one of your values is faith, and because of that, you don't curse. You just don't curse. You don't find the need. You don't, it's not something that you do. For some you do, some you don't. I'm just using this example. But now you hire somebody and they are an extremely experienced, super technical. This guy can do a range hood in his sleep, anything complicated, complex, no problem. Nothing scares him, but he swears like a sailor. Every second word out of his mouth sounds like he's auditioning for the next episode of Scarface. How is that person going to fit in your culture? He's not. He's not. And so you need to stand for something and understand that although this person has the technical skills, they don't have the cultural fit. It's just not going to fit in your company. There's always going to be friction and tension. And that is even more important the smaller your company is. When you've got 1,000 employees, that person can hide and you're not going to see them all the time. But when you're a smaller business with 20, maybe 30 employees, imagine that person coming to the family picnic when you've got your family and your friends and your children, and he's over there swearing like a sailor. It's just, it separates itself right there. And those values are one of the most important things in keeping the culture of your company alive. All right, folks, let's wrap it up here. I don't want to go too long, but that is the inside story of success of at least in the bounds of confidentiality, because I can't share pricing and I can't share a lot of things, but we worked on profitability. We got their sales, into the $4 million range. And by the way, I just realized I talked about raising their sales by $1 million like it was nothing. And it wasn't hard. I showed them how to do it. And for some of you who heard that, you might have gone, Rubino, show me how to do that. Well, stay tuned to the show. That's what we do here, right? But it's not about increasing sales. It's about increasing profitability. I would rather that you did 900,000 in sales and took home 800,000 in profit than you did 20 million in sales and took home 20 grand in profit, because those companies exist. Do not get fooled by what you see out there when somebody talks about revenue. Revenue is a lie. Profitability is the only truth. All right, folks, thank you so much for checking in. I'll do the outro here in a second. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and we'll talk to you soon. Have a great day.